You know, it's easy to say Happy New Year and wish everybody the best in 2023, but I have no idea where this journey is going to go. I don't know what it's going to be like for me, like it makes any difference. I don't know what it's going to be like for the church. I don't know what it's going to be like for you. And so I hope we have a Happy New Year, but there's a part of me that's nervous about the new year because I don't see the thing in Ukraine stopping, and there's always going to be kids that can't get enough to eat, and I think violence doesn't seem to be going away. And I guess one of the things that I look for is I just rejoice when I hear about or see an act of kindness. You know, it's maybe one person, it's maybe just one moment, maybe one word of hope for somebody that's going through a tough time. But when I see an act of kindness and an act of goodness given unto somebody else, it makes me realize that is what life is about. And I don't care, nothing can take the joy and the power of kindness away. There's two things that happened this week, and you know, since I don't have a whole lot to say anyway, I like to share them. One is, so Lenny called me the other night, and he says, Don, I got to tell you what happened. So he went to, I can't remember if it was Walmart or wherever, and he went and he purchased something, and they rang it up, and he went in, and he didn't have his wallet. And they'd already rung it up, and so he was trying to get it canceled and having trouble, and so some guy comes up and sees what he's going through, pays the bill, and runs away, and Lenny can't even thank him. And I said, Lenny, it's Friday night, and I already got a sermon. Thanks to you. But number one, I was happy for Lenny. He wanted to say thank you, and I kind of wish that guy was me. I kind of wish that if that happened to somebody in front of me, that I would do the same thing. And my guess is most of you probably would. The other thing that just tugs at my heart is, as most of you know, Debbie's father passed away, deep in the throes of Alzheimer's. And he was had to be put in a facility in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where he passed away the other day. And how do you get Tony's ashes somehow taken care of and get him back here? How do you do that? And I just said, well, you got to call someone who cares. And I gave him the name of a funeral home. And you probably know who it was. We're not going to mention it because I don't want to, no free advertising here, you know. But so she called, and they said, we'll do the best we can. And so they called the other day, and they said, Debbie, this is what we're going to do. We're going to drive up to Madison, and we're going to get your dad, who has passed, and we're going to bring him home. And he's going to be here. No one else is going to take care of him. We're going to make the drive and bring him home. And even though that happened a couple of days ago, just telling that story gives me chills, because that's an example of someone just going the extra mile to help turn somebody's life around. And see, that's where the power is. And maybe we can't pay somebody else's bill, and maybe we can't drive a hearse and get someone up there, but you know something? We all have stuff, and we all have time, and we all have gifts, and we can do that. And you know, when you do that, whether you get recognized or not, it reminds people of where the power in life really, really is. Another little story, my self-esteem took a few bumps this week because I was in the bullpen for 2 funerals. So I got a call from a funeral home, and they said, well, Don, we can't find the pastor of the church over there, so we want you to do the funeral. And I said, okay. And so I make arrangements and clear my schedule, and then he calls me back. Don, by the way, we found the pastor. You're done. So the same funeral home calls me back the next day and says, there's a lady, and she belongs to this rather big church that has a ton of pastors, and she's trying to get a funeral. She said all her pastors are on vacation. And I said, they got like 12. And they said, well, no, it's not. I call him back the next day. Okay, you bumped me this week once. If one of those guys comes back from vacation, are you going to bump me again? And he said, maybe. So my esteem was kind of low. So I went to go to the hospital to visit Mary Kay's brother, and a religious person from another church came in with the communion kit. and said, would you like communion? And Mary Kay said, well, yeah. And he said, well, I can give it to your brother, but I can't give it to you. Well, why not? Well, you're not part of our faith. And Mary Kay goes, can you imagine Jesus acting like that? I said, proud of you, and he walked out the door. But speaking of the open door, I mentioned it in one of my little posts. I went to visit an Irish Catholic, and I don't visit a lot of Irish Catholics. And but his wife goes to church, and I went into his house, and he's kind of frail, got oxygen. And he's a Vietnam vet and a retired firefighter. And I just went there and had a little TV tray. I haven't seen a TV tray in 10 years, but there was one right there for coffee, maybe a cold beer, some cake. And it's getting toward the end, and I was almost afraid after the day I've had to even ask him if he wants communion. Because Irish Catholics don't take communion from Lutherans very often. And I said, would you like communion? And he started to cry. He said, yes, I would. And just a couple of plastic cups and a couple of wafers and a TV tray, that was the altar. And somehow his service to his country and his service to his community, that was his offering. And we shared the Lord's Supper, and he started to tell a story about what his country meant to him and about what our church means to him. And I realized that's what life's about. God only knows what 2023 is going to bring. But if you can just do or be the recipient of an act of kindness, that has more power than bombs and all the other stuff that sometimes gets in the way of understanding where God lives. In the gospel for today that Linda just read, there was a guy named Simon. And he was an old man, a Jewish man that would spend most of his time waiting outside the temple for the Messiah to appear. And luckily, shortly before he died, they went in to have Jesus circumcised. And they placed the Christ child in Simon's arms. And he said, praise be to God. I've been waiting all my life to see the Son. And now I've seen him. Well, we're not going to be that lucky. We can wait and wait and wait. And wouldn't it be nice if someone would take the Christ child and place him right in our arms so we could believe that solidly? But something? Every time something good happens, every time there's an act of kindness, every time there's someone who might pay somebody's bill or go bring somebody's father home or say yes to Holy Communion, it's kind of like God's taking the Christ child, putting it right in your lap, and letting us know that's exactly how close God is every single day. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed.